Hey everybody, Max here with another New World video. In this video, I'll be going over my Great Axe build. Let's get into it. So with this video, I wanted to primarily highlight the Great Axe. My secondary weapon would have to be the hatchet, and if you're curious about my hatchet build, please check out my sword and hatchet build video. There'll be a link at the end. So with the Great Axe, I want to get into the different playstyles. The first playstyle is what I prefer, and that's a well-rounded PvP-PVE leveling build. This is centered around taking charge, execute, and gravity well, and ultimately, bloodlust. So what are these abilities, you ask? Well, concerned viewer, charge is pretty obvious, but you charge 10 meters, dealing 120% weapon damage when you reach a target. Execute is a powerful overhead attack dealing 200% weapon damage, or 300% if the target is under 50% health. Then Gravity Well is where you throw an axe to create a vortex that pulls foes to its center for 3 seconds and also ends with a damaging burst dealing 125% weapon damage. It also has a range of 10 meters. Bloodlust is the final ability in the Reaper tree, and it allows you to move 30% faster and deal 15% more damage when looking at a foe within 15 meters. So without going any further into the build, let's break it down a bit more. PvP in New World seems to be all about closing the gap between you and your foes. Being able to use a combination of charge into Gravity Well into Execute, all while Bloodlust is active, can prove quite prosperous. Bloodlust is giving you that very much needed speed buff. Charge being able to really push you ahead, then Gravity Well to keep them stationary long enough to potentially perform your Execute. The big change I would suggest for PvP is taking out Execute and grabbing Reap instead, but I'll touch more on that in a minute. Now the same thought process makes leveling and PvE quite fun. There are multiple times where you'll be facing more than one foe due to some more congested areas, or maybe you just want to group them up so you can level faster. This build definitely gives you the ability to do just that. With Execute and PvE and leveling, you can hit very, very hard. So now that we have some base idea as to what this build is all about, let's jump into some of the other abilities to make this even better. Let's start with the Reaper side, where we'll be taking Greed, which gives your light attacks 5% damage for 5 seconds, but can stack up to 3 times, giving you a potential of 15% more damage. More damage is always a good thing. Moving on to Critical Gains, which when you make a critical hit, you heal yourself for 10% of the damage done. A nice little health regen. Keen Edge is just a base 10% increase in critical damage. Critical Condition, attacks against foes below 30% HP, hit 15% more. This one is definitely geared more towards PvE, as you can time it just a lot easier. The next ability, Feed, falls into the same category. Attacks against foes under 30% HP heal you for 10% damage done. Death's Embrace, just armor pin if a foe is under 50% HP. Frustration, after an attack is blocked, gain 15% damage for 10 seconds. Just even more damage stacking. Now the other 2 points spent in Reaper is to go to buffing Execute. So we take Unstoppable Greed, which gives you Grit, making the attack unstoppable, and Executioner, which critical hits 100% of the time when foes are under 30%. Yet another more PvE type bump that you probably wouldn't take for PvP. But let's move over to the Mauler side, where we take Heavy Pull. Heavy attacks pull foes closer to you. As you can see, there's a pattern here, lumping enemies together. Onto Enduring Strike, adds Grit to heavy attacks and grants 20% damage reduction. Now Grit is an added stagger resistance that stops attacks from being interrupted. This next one I really like, Gravity, causes your next pull on a foe to be held 30% longer. This just helps keeps targets contained even more. Now Center of Attention and Crowded Protection both help when 3 or more foes are within 4 meters. These two might not see as much use except for in particular settings, but it helps in those oh crap moments where you pull too much or you're surrounded in certain PvP situations. And finally, Crowded Well just adds a 10% damage burst to your Gravity Well. Here's the final build for your reference. So if you aren't a fan of the long animation of Execute and you prefer something a bit easier to hit, then I suggest removing the 3 points from Execute and 1 point from Crowded Protection, and then dump those points all into the Reap column. Reap is definitely a more preferred ability in PvP, as you can pull enemies within 8 meters. It provides a heal, and you perform an attack. I wouldn't fault anyone for taking Reap over Execute, it just comes down to personal preference. This is what the end result would look like if you decided to go Reap instead. Now to touch on Whirlwind and Maelstrom, they both can be viable in PvE, especially if you're doing big group pools and need the additional area of effect, the AoE. I really think both could use a little extra though to make them more appealing. If Maelstrom could pull from 8 to 10 meters like Reap, I might be more inclined to take that. If Whirlwind was more of like a stamina dump, like if you hold Whirlwind, you continue to spin using, let's say, 10 to 20 mana per second, or something along those lines, similar to how a Barbarian in Diablo works. If you're hitting foes, you can gain a small amount of stamina back, but if you're depleted, then it goes on cooldown. That would be awesome, and would make me probably pursue the Mauler side even more. Hopefully we'll see some solid changes in the near future though, or hopefully by release. But that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed my Great Axe breakdown. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, stay tuned for more New World content. Until then, catch you guys on the flippity flip.